They called it the perfect wedding. White linen, expensive wine, smiling faces, and a love story everyone thought had won. But perfection has a way of collapsing the moment truth is allowed to speak. Hello, buddies. My name is Graham Foster. I'm 56 years old. I spent most of my life believing that if you stayed loyal, stayed quiet, and kept your head down, things would eventually work out. I was married for 30 years, built a software company from nothing, raised 2 kids, paid every bill on time, and still ended up being replaced like outdated furniture. This isn't a story about anger. It's a story about walking away and what happens when the truth finally catches up. It all started in Austin, Texas. Westlake Hills, to be exact. A $3.2 million house that looked flawless from the outside. Limestone walls, hill country views. The kind of place people slow down to admire when they drive past. Inside, it looked like a design magazine had exploded. That was my ex-wife, Blair. She had an eye for beauty. She also had a talent for making people feel small while smiling at them. I spent 3 decades in that house slowly disappearing. At first, it was subtle. A chair I loved quietly moved into storage. A comment at a dinner party when I picked the wrong wine. A laugh afterward like it was a joke while everyone else joined in. The rules kept changing and I never seemed to get them right. By year 28, I was sleeping in my home office. By year 29, I stopped trying to be enough. We had 2 kids. Riley, our daughter, sharp as a tack, already seeing through things most people miss. Austin, our son, brilliant but still wrapped up in his mother's version of reality. In that version, I was cold, distant. The problem: if you've ever watched your own words come out of your child's mouth, you know how much that hurts. Then my body stepped in. October 23rd, minor heart attack. Minor, they said. I was standing in the kitchen while Blair explained why the beige wall needed to be repainted with a different beige. My chest tightened. That heavy, crushing pressure they talk about. I drove myself to the ER. Blair didn't come. The painter needed supervision. The cardiologist used the word stress so many times I lost count. Then he leaned back and said something I still hear clearly. Your heart is sending a message. Are you listening? Lying there under hospital lights, staring at walls that looked just like the ones at home, I realized something that scared me more than the heart attack. I could die in that house, and not be missed until I caused an inconvenience. That night, after I was discharged, Blair talked the entire drive home about paint samples and contractor mistakes. I watched the city lights pass by and felt strangely calm. Something had shifted. I wasn't angry, I was done. I lay on the couch in my office, one hand on my chest, feeling my heartbeat. Still here, still ticking. And I asked myself the simplest question of my life. Did I want to survive, or did I want to live? If you've ever felt your health slipping while pretending everything is fine, take a second right now. Hit like on this video. Not for me, for yourself. Because ignoring the warning signs costs more than you think. That night I made a decision quietly. No yelling, no drama, just clarity. I would leave, carefully, methodically. And I would never announce it until it was already done. And that choice, made in silence, set off a chain of events no one at that wedding ever saw coming. I didn't leave right away. I planned the exit the same way I'd planned every serious decision in my life, quietly, patiently, without tipping over the chessboard. On the surface, nothing changed. Blair still hosted dinner parties, still corrected my sentences mid-conversation, still smiled at guests while cutting me down just enough that I felt it. I still nodded, still stayed polite, still played my role. But inside, I was already gone. People misunderstand moments like that. They think leaving starts with anger. It doesn't. It starts with clarity. I gave myself 6 months, not to punish her, not to win, just to leave clean. The software company I'd built years earlier had sold 2 years back. After taxes, I had a little over 4 million tucked away. Blair never asked for details. Money was my department. In our marriage, being invisible had become my skill set. Now it was my advantage. I started organizing my life the way you do when you know something is ending. Accounts separated, documents copied, digital backups stored where no one else could touch them. I created an irrevocable family trust and named Riley as trustee, not because I loved one child more than the other, but because she saw clearly and wouldn't be manipulated. Half the funds went there, protected, untouchable. The rest I structured carefully. Conservative investments, passive income, enough to live simply without ever having to explain myself to anyone again. The house was the final piece, mortgage-free, beautiful, Blair's masterpiece. I refinanced it quietly, pulled out a large loan against it, and let her sign where she always did, without reading, without asking. She trusted me with numbers the same way I'd trusted her with my dignity. I wasn't taking the house. I didn't want it. I was leaving her exactly what she wanted, including the weight that came with it. In December, I told Riley everything over dinner. No drama, just facts, dates, structure, the plan. She listened without interrupting, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Dad," she said softly, "you should have done this years ago." I didn't tell Austin. At 24, he still needed the story where his mother was right and I was the problem. I'd learned something by then: truth only works when someone's ready to hear it. January came quietly. January 15th. 5 a.m. I packed 2 suitcases. 30 years fit into them easier than you'd think. I left the divorce papers on the kitchen counter under a coffee mug. House keys on top. A short note. No explanations. No blame. Everything's yours. I'm gone. When the door closed behind me, there was no sadness, just relief. If you're still watching this and thinking about a situation you know you should leave, but haven't, subscribe now. Not because this is entertainment, but because stories like this remind you you're not crazy for wanting peace. By the time Blair found the note, I was already over the Atlantic, and I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Because sometimes when you finally walk away, the consequences don't follow you. They explode behind you. Portugal didn't feel like an escape. It felt like oxygen. Lisbon met me without questions. No one cared who I used to be, what I owned, or why I left. The morning smelled like espresso and warm bread. Church bells echoed off stone streets. From my small balcony, I watched the Tagus River carry ships toward places that still had somewhere to go. For the first time in years, my chest didn't feel tight. I built a routine slowly. Swimming in the mornings. Coffee at the same cafe where the owner corrected my Portuguese without judgment. Afternoons spent walking, sketching rooftops, learning how to exist without performing. My blood pressure dropped. I slept through the night. 15 pounds fell off without effort. Peace does that to a body. Riley called every Sunday. She was thriving, promotion stacking up, voice steady. Austin didn't call at all. I gave him space. Some people need silence to protect the stories they believe. 5 months in, I felt settled. Not happy in a loud way. Content in a quiet one. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed. An Instagram message from a name I hadn't seen in 20 years. Scott Turner, college friend. We'd lost touch after careers and marriages pulled us in different directions. "Hey Graham," it read. "Long shot, but thought you should know, Blair's getting married next month. Big vineyard wedding in Hill Country. Guy's name is Preston Montgomery. Figured you'd want a heads up." I stared at the screen. Didn't feel anger. Didn't feel sadness. Just curiosity, I typed back one sentence. Thanks for telling me I'm good, really good. And I meant it. Still, habits die hard. 30 years of building companies teaches you something. You don't ignore patterns, you verify them. I looked him up. Preston Montgomery, public profile, luxury cars, designer suits, 3 restaurants in under 2 years, thousands of likes. The kind of confidence that photographs well. Something about it felt rushed. So I did what I'd always done. I checked foundations, public filings, credit records, lawsuits. It didn't take long. The numbers didn't match the lifestyle. Credit lines stretched thin, suppliers unpaid, a former partner suing. Expansion fueled by borrowed time and other people's money. This wasn't success. It was momentum masking collapse. I closed my laptop and stared out at the river. Somewhere in Texas, my son was standing beside this man, calling him a role model, smiling for photos that would live forever online. That was the moment I understood something important. Walking away had saved me, but staying silent might cost my son. If you've ever faced a moment where telling the truth risks being misunderstood, but staying quiet guarantees damage, pause here. Comment below if you believe silence can be just as dangerous as conflict. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to ruin a wedding. I wanted one thing only: for the truth to be spoken, once clearly, in a room full of people who had stopped asking questions. And I knew exactly how to do it without ever setting foot back in Texas. I didn't act right away. Truth has weight, and if you drop it carelessly, it crushes the wrong people. My first call was to Riley. She already knew something was off. That's the thing about people who work with numbers for a living. They don't fall for shiny stories. I told her what I'd found. Credit lines, lawsuits, suppliers waiting to be paid. Silence on the other end of the line, then a slow breath. "Dad," she said, "I've been looking too. It's worse." She explained what her forensic software showed. Revenue inflated. Investor money moving where it shouldn't. People taking out second mortgages to chase Preston's image of success. And then she said the sentence that changed everything. "Austin isn't just attending, he's standing up there. Groomsmen." I closed my eyes. Public photos last forever. Careers don't survive association with fraud, not even accidental. My son wasn't just watching a mistake anymore. He was about to endorse it. I tried calling Austin. When he answered, his voice was sharp, defensive before I'd said a word. "He's a good man," he said. "Successful, treats mom right. You walked away, Dad. Don't rewrite history." I didn't argue, I didn't push. I'd learned that lesson the hard way. "Just promise me one thing," I said. "Pay attention, verify. Don't stop asking questions because it feels uncomfortable." Silence. Then irritation. "I don't need advice, you sound bitter." The line went dead. That one hurt more than I expected. That night I walked Lisbon's narrow streets before dawn, listening to footsteps echo against stone. I asked myself the hardest question of all. Was this about protecting my son or punishing my ex? The honest answer was uncomfortable. It was both, but there was more than that. 15 families, employees, investors, people about to lose everything because no one dared to speak in a room full of applause. That's when I made the decision. I wouldn't interfere. I wouldn't accuse. I wouldn't shout. I would make space for truth. I called an old contact, someone who owed me a favor from years ago when his business was drowning and I helped him quietly stay afloat. An event professional. Calm, discreet, connected. "I need someone," I said, "with credibility, age, authority, the kind of presence people trust before they even know why." There was a pause, then a chuckle. "I know exactly who you need," he said. "A retired attorney. Early 70s. Expert witness background. The kind of man juries believed before he spoke. someone who could ask questions without raising his voice and let the silence do the damage. No sabotage, no lies, only public records and one carefully chosen moment. If you're still watching, stay with me. Subscribe now, because what happens when truth is spoken calmly is far more powerful than any confrontation. The wedding date was set. The room would be full. The audience would be ready. And I would be 4,000 miles away, watching nothing, waiting for everything. The days leading up to the wedding passed slower than I expected. In Lisbon, life kept its rhythm. Coffee at the same cafe. The river moving like it always had. People laughing in a language that didn't carry my past. On the surface, I looked calm. Inside, I was balancing something delicate, truth versus damage. Riley kept me updated in quiet messages. Times, details, who was arriving, who was sitting where. She didn't editorialize, she didn't ask me to stop. She understood something Austin didn't yet. This wasn't revenge. This was exposure. 3 days before the ceremony, Riley called late my time. Her voice was tight. "Dad, Austin gave a toast at the rehearsal dinner." I closed my eyes. "He talked about success," she continued. "About building something fast. About Preston being the model of what real achievement looks like." That was the moment my guilt peaked. Because watching someone you love praise a lie publicly hurts more than being lied to yourself. Austin still hadn't called me back. I knew why. If he spoke to me, he'd have to hear doubt, and doubt cracks certainty. Certainty is comfortable, truth isn't. The man we'd arranged, calm, precise, impossible to dismiss, had his briefing. He didn't need coaching. He'd spent a lifetime asking questions that unraveled facades. "No accusations," he told my contact. "Only facts. Let the room connect them." The night before the wedding, I barely slept. At dawn, I walked the streets again, listening to Lisbon wake up. Delivery trucks, shopkeepers lifting metal gates, life continuing without drama. I reminded myself of something important. I wasn't responsible for Preston's choices. I wasn't responsible for Blair's blindness. I wasn't even responsible for Austin's readiness. I was responsible for not lying. If you've ever been blamed for speaking truth instead of maintaining someone else's illusion, tap like right now. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. The wedding day arrived. Riley's messages came in timestamps. Guests seated. Music started. Blair in ivory. Preston smiling like a man who believed his own press. The ceremony went perfectly. Applause, tears, champagne poured, then the reception. Austin spoke first. Later, when I saw the video, it hurt in a way I didn't expect. He was sincere, proud, calling Preston the example he wanted to follow. People clapped, glasses clinked. Blair wiped tears of joy. And then a man most people didn't recognize stood up. 72 years old, gray hair, steady hands, the kind of posture you trust instinctively. He walked to the microphone without urgency, without arrogance. The room quieted. This was the moment. 200 people, phones already in hands, a celebration balanced on an illusion. And all it would take was one sentence, spoken calmly, for everything to stop. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He didn't even sound angry. That's why it worked. The man adjusted the microphone, waited just long enough for the room to lean in, and smiled the way only someone with nothing to prove can smile. "Good evening," he said. "My name is Charles. I'm an old family friend. I won't take much of your time." Polite applause, confused glances. Blair smiled, unsure but composed. Preston nodded confidently, wine glass already in hand. Charles continued calmly, almost warmly. "I've spent most of my life in business and law. One thing you learn is that appearances can be convincing, especially when success moves fast." A few people chuckled. 3 restaurants in under 2 years, he said, turning slightly toward Preston. That's impressive growth. It made me curious. The room shifted. Curiosity replaced celebration. So I did what people like me do, Charles went on. I looked at public records, credit filings, supplier liens, pending litigation. Phones started coming out, not dramatically, quietly, the most dangerous way. There's an active lawsuit alleging investor fraud, millions involved, several vendors unpaid, credit lines fully extended. These aren't rumors, they're documents anyone here can access. Blair's smile froze, Preston's jaw tightened. Austin's head snapped up, eyes darting between faces. Charles paused, let the silence do its work. In my experience, he said gently, when growth looks flawless from the outside, the foundation matters more than the photos. He raised his glass not in accusation but in ceremony. So here's my toast, to Blair and Preston. May your future be as strong as the foundation it's built on, because truth always surfaces. It doesn't rush, but it never forgets. That was it. One sentence had done the damage. Everything after was gravity. The room erupted not with shouting but with movement. Guests whispering, screens glowing, searches loading, reality checking illusion in real time. Someone recorded it. Preston stepped forward, red-faced, trying to speak. The planner intervened. Blair turned and walked out, heels clicking too fast, too loud. Austin stood frozen, the floor gone beneath him. 4,000 miles away, my phone rang. I watched it vibrate on the table before answering. Her voice was unrecognizable. Rage, panic, fear, all tangled together. You did this, she screamed. You destroyed my life. I waited until she ran out of breath. Then I spoke quietly. I'm sitting on a balcony in Lisbon, I said. It's past midnight. I don't know who that man was, but if public records ruined your wedding, maybe the problem wasn't the timing. Silence. Then the line went dead. I didn't watch the video that night. I didn't need to. Because the truth had already done what it always does when given room to speak. It didn't explode. It collapsed everything that was never real to begin with. By the time I watched the video, the damage was already done. Someone had posted it overnight. 3 minutes and change. Clear audio, perfect angle. The internet did what it always does when truth shows up uninvited. It amplified it. By morning, the view count was climbing into the millions. By afternoon, it was everywhere. I watched it once. That was enough. Not because it was satisfying, but because it was final. Austin called me that evening. His voice wasn't defensive anymore. It was smaller, stripped of certainty. Dad, everything he said was true, all of it. My firm's asking questions. They've put me on review. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I know, I said. There was a long pause, then something I hadn't heard from my son in years. I should have listened. We talked for a long time about judgment, about charisma, about how confidence isn't proof and speed isn't success. He didn't blame his mother. He didn't excuse Preston. He just owned his part. That's all I needed. Blair never apologized. She didn't have to. Accountability had already arrived without asking permission. The house she'd perfected became a burden. The social circle evaporated. The life she traded me for collapsed under scrutiny. And me, I went back to my routine. Morning swims, coffee downstairs, sunlight on the river. My health kept improving. My sleep deepened. The quiet stayed. 18 months later, my son came to visit me in Lisbon. We walked the city together, talked without tension, laughed without caution. He told me he was learning how to recognize manipulation and how to trust himself again. That mattered more than any vindication. Here's what I learned, and I want you to hear this clearly. Walking away isn't weakness. Silence isn't peace. And truth doesn't need anger to be powerful. Sometimes the strongest choice is leaving without slamming doors, letting life reveal what you already knew, protecting your health, your dignity, and the people you love, even if they don't understand it yet. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who might need permission to walk away. And subscribe, not for drama, but for wisdom earned the hard way. I didn't win anything. I chose myself. And that was enough.